The book of Isaiah is a great way to get a taste of the prophetic literature of the Hebrew Bible, not just because it's the longest body of prophetic work in the Bible, or because it's inspired and captured the imagination of so many people over almost 3 millennia, but because it also captures how a prophetic tradition or school adapts to the present moment circumstances to offer God's word to people of faith. It comprises a single book, not because it had a single author, but because its authors came from the same school of prophets. And it was the right length to be its own scroll when the Hebrew Bible was made up of scrolls. Similarly, the 12 shortest books of prophecy in our Hebrew Bible made up one book called the Book of the 12 in Jewish Bibles because they were lumped together on a single scroll in ancient times. While there's no way for us to know exactly how many people contributed to the book of Isaiah, because authorship and intellectual property weren't important at the time, scholars generally divide it based on the 3 distinct time periods that it addresses. The period when Assyria conquers the northern kingdom and threatens Jerusalem in the 8th century BCE. The period when Judah is in exile but sees a return to Jerusalem on the horizon around 540 BCE. And the period of rebuilding following the return to Jerusalem roughly 20 years later. Differences in writing style and themes distinguish the 3 sections, which are commonly called 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Isaiah. The majority of the first 39 chapters are attributed to 1st Isaiah, the prophet whose name and calling are described in the early part of the book, and who was a resident of Jerusalem in the 8th century. Chapters 40 to 55 are attributed to 2nd Isaiah, who is not named but is writing from exile in Babylon while eagerly awaiting the victory of Cyrus of Persia, which would ultimately result in the Israelites being allowed to return to their homeland. Chapters 56 to 66 reflect the experience following the return to Jerusalem, and they turn toward an apocalyptic hope in the face of disillusionment with the reality of rebuilding. Much of the messianic prophecy that has informed Christianity appears in 2nd and 3rd Isaiah.